You are watching NCN.
Thank you for staying with us right here on NCN, where we have just concluded or heard the senior minister in the Office of the President with responsibility for finance as he concluded his presentation for Budget 2022. This was launched under the theme, Steadfast Against All Challenges, Resolute in Building Our One Guyana. In studio joining me at this time, we have three esteemed gentlemen who will be giving their take or their personal opinions on Budget 2022 and how it will shape the country and take Guyana into the direction we rightfully deserve. At my immediate right, I have Mr. Paul Cheong, the chairman of the Private Sector Commission. Sitting in center is Mr. Richard Rambarran. He is the executive director at the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And to my far right is Mr. Carville Duncan. He's the president of the Federation of Independent Trade Unions of Guyana. Thank you all for taking time out to be here.
Thank you. Thank you, Travis.
Okay, so my first question, I'll start with you, Mr. Cheong. President Ali gave a pre-address to the budget, and he spoke about how it is geared towards economic growth and expansion without bringing new tax burdens to citizens and companies. So I want to go around the room getting each of your opinions on just overall on Budget 2022 before we go in depth into certain sectors.
I think it's a balanced budget, providing for all the different sectors, the vulnerable, the school children, the health care, and the private sector as well. I think it lays the foundation for, massive growth and development, economy, and expansion of the private sector, including job creation and better jobs and so on, lots of training, development in human resources. So from the private sector standpoint, we're happy that the budget is presented this early so that these plans can be implemented timely and so that the country can benefit from these plans and as they're executed.
Thank you for that, Mr. Rambarran.
Yeah, Travis, thank you, and thank you to the team also. So the first thing I want to say is, of course, we have to couch the budget within what is happening within the global environment as well as the domestic economy. And, of course, that still is under the conditions of the global pandemic as well as the supply chain issues. And I think that in itself creates the conditions within which the budget is shaped. Now, when one looks at what is happening as it relates to the global supply chain issues, one would see, and it's being seen by everyone in this room can attest to the fact that there has been inflation that has been occurring. I think what this budget does is respond in a very appropriate way to the challenges that are upon us as a result of both the global environment and some challenges that exist within the domestic economy. So I think that the budget ensures that it balances its incentives as well as its support, both from the enterprise side of things as well as from the consumer side of things. I think looking at that, it gives you a very good equilibrium in terms of moving forward.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Mr. Duncan, would you like to share?
Let me start off by saying this is a budget of history. History was made here today. And by that I mean the budget reflects what has always been the thought of the People Progressive Party, that they need to move Guyana forward. And by doing that, they carry everybody with them. As a trade unionist, I am happy for the budget and what is enshrined in it, primarily because it creates employment for people. And that is fundamental, because we are a small country, our population is also small, but our thinking is big. And taking into consideration the opportunities that is now available, where we need to have human resource properly trained and equipped to take on the challenges, the budget, to my mind, has addressed that.
Thank you all so much for that. Of course, budget comes in at $552.9 billion. In essence, do you believe, especially Mr. Rambarran, you pointed out at this time where we are, I know a lot of persons have been talking about the cost of living, and of course, Budget 2022 addressed that significantly, putting measures in place. But given the current circumstance, how are we able to see Budget 2022 from a business perspective? How will this really enable businesses? Can we talk specifically on measures that you are happy to see that are going to be implemented this year that will bring relief to businesses and then in turn the citizens of the country? I'll start with you, Mr. Cheong.
Yeah, I mean, there are things in there so that would help businesses to retool. Some of the tax breaks on capital equipment, particularly transportation, and so on. Energy costs. I know the fuel price would be reduced immediately. I mean, that affects every single Guyanese, not only businesses. That would assist with your costs, reduce in terms of reducing your costs. There are many other measures as you go through the budget. I mean, thing in training, we get more skilled people to work, and we get. I mean, right now in the business sector, I mean, construction and even production factories, and so they find it difficult to get the requisite skills required to execute wherever they need. I mean, there's a shortage of truck drivers, we see. I mean, so investing in training it would help create the environment where businesses can get the people they need to do the jobs that they're undertaking.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rambarran.
I think that there are about 4 or 5 specific measures that really stand out for me this year that will help to drive and spur private sector development along. I think one of the very first ones is, of course, the parity that would have been mentioned about tax and tax treatment between local companies as well as foreign companies. This comes at a juncture where we are especially supported through legislation of the local content. Now, that is extraordinarily important in terms of supporting Guyanese enterprise. The other, which is very important, is the elimination of that 2% withholding tax for resident contractors. That in itself frees up quite a lot of liquidity, which would have otherwise been stuck within the hands of government. And within the current context of issues with access to finance and the increase in terms of the cost of living and inflation, etc., that in itself puts money back into the hands of enterprises, which of course it has a very strong multiplier effect in the economy. I think that the support for transport and heavy duty and fleets, etc., that in itself, if one remembers the local content schedule, where they refer to trucking and support for trucking, etc., it gives the Guyanese enterprises that are participating in that subsector a chance to ensure that now they can be competitive on the point acquisition of equipment. So that in itself, you can see that there's a great complementarity in the measures, and they're actually supporting and buttressing each other. Of course, Travis, another very important one is the one that the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce and Industry would have lobbied for, which is the freight cost and the adjustment on that freight cost. I'm very happy to see that that measure has been extended until the end of this year, and that in itself represents one that is able to offset or mitigate the global inflationary pressures. And then the fifth one, which the chairman of the Private Sector Commission would have mentioned, which also is of paramount importance, is the reduction in the excise tax on fuel down to 10%. Now, fuel, as you know, is an input to just about every single element of the productive process in a private sector enterprise. So what that does fundamentally is that it gives each enterprise, and even in transportation, etc., it reduces the cost of fuel, or at least it is able to alleviate some of the impact that fuel prices, which are increasing globally, will have. It helps to stabilize prices, and in some instances, it will be able to bring it down depending on what's happening in the international market. So I think that those 5 measures in particular I wanted to point out. Of course, the budget is very extensive, 550 billion, by far the largest ever presented. And the measures, we can see that they are well thought out, and there's a great degree of complementarity that exists among the measures to support private sector development as well as economic growth by logical extension.
Mr. Duncan, do you care to add in that regard?
Let me say this. This budget is not only a historical one, primarily because many things that the ordinary man was hoping would have been in the budget has found itself there. For example, the average man earns about $75,000 a month. Now that is tax-free. So his income indirectly, his take-home, and I refer to it as his real wages, have increased.
Yeah.
Coupled with that, the subsidies that he will get if he have a child going to school, that has also increased. Education, the opportunity is there where his children can fully participate in educational programs at no cost to him, but will benefit Guyana. And then one can look at another area, pensions. People been complaining about the pension. Now the pension is gradually increasing. It's now at 28,000. I'm not saying 28,000 is the ultimate, but every budget since 2020, it's going up. So the working people, to my mind, would be totally satisfied with this budget, because this is a budget for the people. And it's also a budget to move Guyana forward.
Mr. Duncan, just to follow up to what you mentioned there, you mentioned earlier you're a trade unionist. So in that regard, judging from the welfare of the people, what can you say that this budget addresses? I know you mentioned those points, but from a more humanitarian standpoint, how does this really translate to achieving the one Guyana that President Ali speaks about?
The budget gives you the impetus, and it also gives you the confidence. It gives you the motivation to say that there is a future for me in Guyana. And this budget set the rule and the road that you can follow easily to achieve that future.
Thank you so much for that. I want to ask both of you specifically. I know that from day one of the pillars of the government was consultation and inclusivity. Can you tell me about the consultation process of Budget 2022 that both the GCCI and the PSC had with government, and some of the measures that were actually implemented and read today?
We had a meeting between all the private sector bodies, who were part of the private sector commission, which included the chamber, and we put forward a number of recommendations. Many of them we've seen in the budget, and we're happy for those, including the tax on the trucks. We asked for energy reduction in the energy costs, which we to some extent. Not everything that we ask, so we know they don't get, because it's a balancing act. But we are happy for the infrastructure development. There is huge push towards developing infrastructure, the bridge across the Rambarran River, the highway and so on. As we're a small country in terms of our population size, and when people have to sit in traffic for an hour and a half, getting to work and getting back home, is a waste of scarce human resources. So we're happy that measures have been put in place to alleviate that stress of being stuck in traffic for such a long time, and I think that would increase productivity. It would also increase, the well-being of our people, because it's a stressful thing, I tell you, to be sitting in traffic for hours and not getting to where you go. So we're happy for that.
Yeah, yes, sir.
So, Travis, the process of crafting the budget is not one that is done on a one-off only between private sector and the government. The government of Guyana and the private sector, particularly the organized private sector through the business support organizations such as the Cheong Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the Private Sector Commission, we are in consistent dialogue. So this is not as a result of a one-off engagement. It's as a result of a consistent dialogue, an iterative process where we dialogue and ensure that the outcomes that are beneficial for Guyana obtain. Now, naturally, the government operates within an environment of constraints, financial constraints, execution constraints, capacity constraints, etc. And they would select which they can execute reasonably and also within their development trajectory within the current year. So there are a multitude of suggestions that were made, naturally, once engaging with the entire private sector. But I want to say what Paul has mentioned is very important, because the infrastructure work which will happen in the country, naturally we know that infrastructure drives along private sector development and it drives overall economic growth for the country. Now, it might not be immediately apparent, but the public sector investment program was completely achieved to 100% last year, all $140 billion. The private sector investment program has actually doubled this year, about 108% it has increased by, the largest ever in the history of Guyana, up to about $20 billion. That in itself, and that by itself, presents such a tremendous opportunity for the local private sector, because of course we know what's happening in the construction industry, supported by the housing drive, and then further supported by measures such as expanding the low-income ceiling from 12 million to 15 million, so as to encourage home ownership and development. I say that, and I point out the construction sector and infrastructure work in particular, to underscore the fact that infrastructure and infrastructure development really drives economic growth, and it is one which is able to lift people out of poverty. It is also one that is able to put income into the hands of every single Guyanese, whether it be from enterprise, whether it be a consumer, whether it be an individual from the working class, etc. So it is an extraordinarily important development, and I did not want that to pass, because it is of paramount importance within the development trajectory.
Thank you. Cognizant of where we are currently, still in a pandemic, COVID-19 is ravaging the entire world. That is important to note. And we also have massive development on a large scale that is taking place in the country. Like Mr. Rambarran rightfully mentioned, the construction industry is booming. We are seeing expansion because of oil and gas, and now with local content legislation in place, it gives Guyanese that fighting chance to get what they deserve. I want to ask you specifically, with where Guyana is heading on that trajectory of development, how do you see Budget 2022 aiding that process? And even beyond, how would you want to say that the government will be able to deal with challenges that may arise in the country, also at the same time providing for the welfare of all Guyanese and even those who will be coming, because they will be benefiting from infrastructure and other sectors? So in that context, can you answer that? Mr. Cheong, we could start with you.
Right. I mean, I said earlier, I mean, this budget lays the foundation for future growth and development. I mean, this can affect, I mean, us for years to come. I mean, it can continue to create employment. If, for instance, the investment in energy, I mean, that's a transformative project. I mean, it's going to reduce costs of energy. It would make manufacturing more feasible. When that happens, I mean, you know, you're more competitive. You can produce many things. We are a country that dwell or strive right now on primary products. And I mean, with cheaper energy, we can able to move up the chain away from primary product to more tertiary thing. You know, rather than exporting logs, we can be doing furniture and more value-added stuff. Rather than exporting bauxite, we should be exporting aluminum and aluminum products. You know, and cheaper energy give us that opportunity. You know, rather than having a lot of our fruits and vegetables going to waste, we can be converting them into some value, which we can export to our regional neighbors and further afield. So that in itself creates more opportunity with farmers because they're going to be getting more income. It creates more opportunity for people to work in those industries, and it creates more value. And it's all well and good for the future of Guyana.
So, like I would have mentioned, Travis, I think we for us to do a deep dive into the budget, it will naturally be a program on its own. But to support what the chairman of the Private Sector Commission has said, I think one really has to look at the entire architecture as to what is happening and understand that it is not just the budget only, but it is the entire philosophical approach to governance by the government of the day. If one looks, for example, at the investment in human capital through the GOAL program, if one looks, for example, at what in particular this budget does in terms of the Because We Care cash grant, and it actually increasing the disposable income of a parent and the amount of money which they are receiving from about $19,000 per child with the combination of the two grants to roughly about $30,000. That in itself begins to really catalyze from an individual perspective human capital development. Now, I emphasize that because we know that in Guyana and within the context of Guyana, where we are, economic growth will be driven by the investment in people. Now, I am particularly satisfied to see that happening. I am particularly satisfied that we have allocated so much money to education, once again one of the largest social sectors that has received funding, and I look forward to ensuring, I look forward to seeing the fruits of that being born at the end of this fiscal year, because when you have such a large budget, the execution of it, really the magnitude of what will be happening and the economic transformation that will obtain is something that every Guyanese will feel the impact. So I want to offer those words on that part.
Thank you. Mr. Duncan.
The economic transformation will depend heavily on one's earnings and jobs. And this budget has outlined what can happen, especially in the oil and gas sector. Because what it does, it set out quite clearly that training is a necessity. And they'll be training persons to just get jobs in the gas and oil sector. So what we're in fact doing is educating Guyanese to develop Guyana and not depending on persons outside of Guyana to do it. And I think that is why this budget, to my mind, is a people's budget. It's a development budget, taking into consideration what is happening in the world with the COVID-19. And notwithstanding that, Guyana would be moving forward, because we have gone beyond COVID-19, and we are saying this is our plan for the future. And our plan for the future is to ensure that our population is uplifted, they are educated, and their earnings have increased, and so they can better perform because they are motivated. And once they're motivated, then the country would move forward.
Mr. Duncan, you mentioned there the oil and gas sector, but one of the approaches of government is to create a diversified landscape, a multi-sectoral approach, not only investing in oil and gas, but agriculture, education.
Yes, this is a reference.
Yes, but I wanted your take specifically on why is this important to invest in the other sectors and not only focus on what is giving us most of revenue.
The budget itself is answering that question. It is saying, look, we're talking about all-round development. What are we going to do in the interior? Instead of having 2,000 persons, you'll have 2,005. Training persons. They are trained, and then they are training persons to take on responsibilities. What we were having in education, we are educating more people to take care of our business. What we're doing at the University of Guyana, we are training more people. So in reality, education would be the key to success. And that's the point I'm making.
Thank you so much. Of course, we're coming down to program time, so I just want to quickly go across the room. If you have any final comments or reference points on what really stands out to you from this budget, Mr. Chair.
I tell people this all the time. I mean, we live in an exciting time. And, this is an exciting time to be in business. It's an exciting time to be living in Guyana. We all will be on board and think positive and look at ways in which we can participate in the growth and development of Guyana and get on board. I think people, the young people, need to grasp the opportunities available to them. Now, at this time, I mean, this is unprecedented. Many of us who've been in Guyana for a long time, like Carville, I mean, these what is available now to the young people was never available to Guyanese before, and so, but they require to make an effort and grasp it and take the opportunity and utilize it to the maximum for their benefit, so that they can have a fulfilling life in Guyana. I mean, the future is bright for this country, and we call on everybody to get on board and see the bright future that Guyana has and participate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Travis, what I find particularly impressive about this budget is that this budget offers an investment into the future of Guyana, whether it is through infrastructure investment, whether it is through investment in the people of Guyana, whether it is through investment in all of the state institutions, etc. It is a budget which really acts as a watershed moment in the history of Guyana. It's one where we will turn the corner, and I'm happy to see that the first drawdown that is made on the Natural Resources Fund is one that is invested in that manner, one that is invested in future generations. Now, it is particularly impressive that the government has been able to produce such a large budget, but it has been done in a fiscally responsible manner, in a manner which keeps the deficit of the fiscal to just about 7% of GDP. And in these trying economic times, these global economic times, you'll find that deficits around the world are running away, which equals to more debt in the future, or more debt for future generations. Once again, that in itself is an investment in the future, to ensure that the future generations are not saddled with debt. The finance minister would have mentioned that we have in Guyana one of the lowest debt to GDP ratios in the entire Western Hemisphere. Now, that is not something that can easily be understated, because we know where we have come from in the past in this country, being one of the heavily indebted poor countries, one of the epic countries, etc., and what that has done to our development. So, like I would have mentioned, it is impressive that we have presented such a large budget with something in it for everyone, being done in a fiscally responsible manner.
Thank you. Mr. Duncan, your closing comments?
I would say that the budget sets the road. It gives you the prescription as what we can achieve. And it leaves now to the Guyanese people, especially the young people, to utilize this opportunity for the betterment, not only for themselves, but the betterment of the country in which they live. Because these opportunities weren't given before. This is still new. And that is why I constantly say that this is a budget for the people. It's a people's budget. Because the budget concentrates mostly on the development of the country and development of the human resource in the country. So let us take advantage of that and utilize the facilities that are available so we can make Guyana a better place.
Thank you, Mr. Duncan. Thank you all for taking time out to be here, sharing your views on Budget 2022 and where it will take Guyana. And of course, thank you to your listeners and viewers of this program. Of course, Budget 2022 is a pro-people approach to addressing the hardship that Guyanese people are currently facing. So most of the measures are seeking to have great benefit to all people of Guyana. And of course, stay tuned right here on NCN, wherever you are viewing this program, as we bring to you more information and updates on Budget 2020. I am Travis Bruce. Thanks for joining us.